start with Dalad Dalad.
Oh, God. Okay, here we go. Rabbi Eliezer says if one makes of his tefillah a fixed task, because tefillah is not a supplication. Rabbi Yeshua says anyone journeying in a place of danger may recite a short petition. But save, O Lord, your people Israel when they is straying to transgression, let their needs be before you. Blessed are you, O Lord, who hearkens unto prayer. Mhm. If someone was riding on a donkey, he must dismount. If he was unable to, he must turn his face. If he is unable to turn his face, he shall direct his heart toward the Holy of Holies. If someone was sitting in a boat or on a wagon or on a raft, he shall direct his heart towards the Holy of Holies. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer Ein Tefilas Musafin Ela B'Chever. So, up until now, we've been talking about the obligatory ones, which are Shachris and Mincha.
Right.
Okay. Musaf, so Mariv at the time was always at the time of the Mishnah for sure was a voluntary thing, although we've adopted it now as our minhag. And now Musaf is a different thing because it's not keneged one of the Tamidim. Um, and the question is it something that you do with or without a minyan? Okay, so Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says you can only say Musaf with a minyan. So that's chashuv that it's something that can only be said. B'chever ir is when you have a minyan. Okay. Forget about it. Whether you do or don't have a minyan, you say Musaf.
Yeah.
Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishmo. Rabbi Yehuda has a different version of what Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said. Okay, which is kol makom sheyesh chever ir. If you have a minyan in town, hayachid pater mitfilas hamosafin. He says then you don't have to. Then if you're by yourself and you can't join the minyan, then you don't say musaf. However, if there is no minyan and nobody's saying it in that city, then you have to say it even by yourself,
Right.
which is an interesting patch on it. At any rate, of course, the halacha is like the chachamim.
And we have the whole day. Say it's not a
Yeah, and
fixed
you've got
time.
and you've got the whole day to say your musaf, correct? Although there was somebody who said no, only up to the seventh hour. I think, am I right? It was
Yeah, there was someone said that.
yeah, okay. We'll come across that again, but I do think it was until the seventh hour. Let me just see. I've just got to check if I remember that correctly. Uh,
Um, it says that yeah, it says the evening the tefillah is not fixed and the musaf all day. And Rabbi Huda says until the seventh hour.
there we go.
Right.
Okay. Perek Hey, Ein Omdin lehispalel ela mitoch koved rosh. So it is important before you get up to daven that you have cleared your head and that this is taken under, that you're davening with with a seriousness. How do they translate koved rosh? Is with seriousness or with
Um, they say with
reverence? Probably reverence.
reverent. They say reverent mood.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, reverence is the right word, I think, because I thought of it too. Chassidim Harishonim hayu shohim shana achas mispalalim. So the original Chassidim, we're not talking about the Baal Shem Tov here. We're talking
Right.
about people who have perfected themselves. They would in terms of Musar. It's interesting, by the way. Rav Haber was speaking about this in the Tzidkas Tzadik. The difference between a tzaddik and a chassid is a tzaddik is somebody who knows what's right and aspires to get there, and the chassid is the one who has actually perfected himself. The chassid is higher than the tzaddik in that
Right.
respect, at least according to Rav Tzadok. Anyway, they used to wait a whole hour. They used to prepare themselves a whole hour before they would pray in order to get themselves into the mood. So, okay, to prepare their intentions for Hashem. If a person is davening, and even the king comes to ask how you're doing, he didn't realize, he just thought you were, standing there and looking at the view, and he says, "Hey, commoner, how are you?" You don't answer. Even if he looks down and sees a snake crawling around his leg, lo yafsik. He should not interrupt himself. Now, this is said, we clarify I think in the Gemara that this is talking about where you're not talking about a pikuach nefesh situation, such as if there's a non-Jewish king who might cut
Right,
yourself for not responding, or if it's actually a poisonous snake and you need to get yourself away. But if you
right.
recognize, it's just a little grass snake, I don't like snakes, but it's not a poisonous one. And even though snakes creep me out, I'm standing here talking to Hashem. I can't run away from this. And the Jewish king who'll recognize, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize you were davening.
Right.
Right there, you've got to keep yourself still. Okay. Mazkirin gevuras geshamim b'tchias hamesim. Okay, now this is Mazkirin. This is what we just started saying. Mashiv haruach hamarid hageshem. Um, you mention it in the bracha that's called Techias Hamesim, right? Which is showing that why is that there? Because it shows that it's a praise. This is not a bakasha. We're not asking for rain at this point. All we're doing is we're praising Hashem on the power of giving rain, which you're saying it's the first three brachas are praise of Hashem, and they're not bakashas, and
Right.
and including the giving of rain among those like right up there on the pedestal next to reviving the dead. Because when you think
Okay.
about it, I mean, I often used to think about it, and sometimes I still do. It's like you look up and you see like these clouds in the sky, and just water drops out of the sky. So what? Mad. It's
Yeah.
absolutely mad. I mean, we're just so used to it because that's how science works. But like the fact that rain falls out of the sky is like kind of mad.
Right.
Okay? All right. B'shoalin hageshamim b'birkas hashanim. And when it's time to ask for rain, then we have a separate bracha for that. That's in birkas hashanim. Okay, ninth bracha. Um, the Havdalah, the Chonein Hadas. And you say Havdalah on Motzei Shabbos and after Chag in the first bracha Ata Chonein Adam Das. Rabbi Akiva disagrees. He says Omra bracha revius b'fnei atzma. He says before you even say Ata Chonein, you already say a separate bracha of Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lachol
Right.
before that. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Hodan. He says leave it. You do. He says you don't make a separate bracha, but you don't insert it into Chonein Adas. You add it into Modim. Okay, and of course we know the halacha is like the Tanakama. Okay,
Yeah.
back to Aleph base.
For when is the Shema read in the morning? When one is able to distinguish between the kalit and white. Reb Eliezer says when one can distinguish between the kalit and green, and if he fishes and finishes, it's until sunrise. Reb Yeshua says, for such is the custom of the princes to rise at 3 hours. Whoever reads from them onwards was not lost, and one like the one who reads the Torah. See? Beit Shammai say, in the evening, everyone must recline and read, and in the morning he must stand erect, since it is said, when you lie down and when you rise up. But Beis Hillel says, everyone may read it as it suits him, since it says, and when you walk by the way. And if so, why does it state, and when you lie down and when you rise up? The time when people lie down and the times when people are up. Rabbi Tarfon said, I was once on a road and I reclined to read in the conformity with Beit Shammai, and I endangered my life because of robbers. They said to him, you deserve to forfeit your life since you did not act in accordance with the words of Beis Hillel. In the morning, one recites two blessings before it and after it, and in the evening, two before it and two after it, one long, one short. Wherever they lay down a long formula, one is not permitted to shorten, and a short formula, one is not permitted to lengthen. To recite an end formula, one is forbidden not to recite the end formula, and when we're not to recite an end formula, one is not permitted to recite an end formula. Okay. Problem. Okay. Daled Zion. If a Zab was sitting on a bed and there were four shawls under the four legs of the bed, they are tameh, because the bed stand on three legs. Reb Shimon rules them tahor. If a Zab is running upon an animal and there were four shawls under the animal's four legs, they are tahor, because the animal can stand on three legs. If there was a single shawl under its two forelegs, or under its two hind legs, or under one of its forelegs or one of its hind legs, it's tameh. Reb Yossi says a horse conveys tuma through its hind legs, while a donkey conveys tuma through its forelegs. For the primary support of the horse is on its hind legs, for the primary support of a donkey, it's on its forelegs. If a Zab set upon the beam of an olive press when utensils that are in the pressing basket are tame, but if he set upon the launderer's press, the utensils that are underneath it are tahor, and Rabbi Chuma rooms them tame. One who touches a Zab, or whom the Zab touches, or one who moves a Zab, or whom the Zab moves, contaminates food and beverages and immersible utensils through contact, but not through carrying. Rabbi Yeshua, I'm sorry, just one second, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Rav Shua stated a general rule: any person who contaminates his clothing during the time of contact with a source of contamination contaminates food and beverages to the degree that they will become beginning level, and contaminates another person's hands to the degree that they will become shady, but does not contaminate people on earthenware vessels. After his separation from the source that rendered him tame, he contaminates beverages to the degree that they will become beginning level, and food in another person's hands to the degree that they will become tame, but does not contaminate clothing. Okay.
One more.
Right, right. Okay. Furthermore, they stated another general rule: anything that is carried on top of a tzav is tummy, whereas anything that the tzav is carried upon is tahor, except for something that is suitable for use as a couch or a seat, and except for a person. How so? In a case where the finger of a zav is under a row of bricks and the tahor person is on the top of the row of bricks, that person contaminates two and invalidates one. When he separates, he contaminates one and invalidates one. When the tummy zav is on top of the row of bricks and the tahor person is underneath it, that person contaminates two and invalidates one. When he repeats, when he separates, he contaminates one and invalidates one. In a case where food, beverages, a couch, a seat, and ordinary utensils are on top of the row of bricks, they contaminate two and disqualify one. When they separate, they contaminate one and disqualify one. But in a case where a couch or a seat are underneath the row of bricks, they contaminate two and disqualify one. When they separate, they further contaminate two and disqualify one. And if food and beverages or ordinary vessels are underneath the row of bricks, they remain tahor. Okay,
Okay, that's it. Um,
taharos. We have,
Eches.
yeah, right, okay. Um, if there was one deranged female in the town, or a Canaanite woman, or a female Kuthian, all the spittle in the town is tame. Regarding someone whose garments a woman tread, or who sat with him on a boat, if she recognizes him as someone who eats tuma, his garments are tar, but not. If not, he must remain. He must ask her. If a single witness says that one was rendered tame, and the person says, "I was not rendered tame," he is deemed tahor. If two, if two witnesses say you were rendered tame, and he says, "I was not rendered tame," remember rules him tame, but they could come and say he's a believe through himself. If a single witness says that he was rendered tame, and two witnesses say he was not rendered tame, he is deemed tahor, whether in a private domain or in a public domain. If two witnesses say that he is rendered tame, and a single witness says that he was not rendered tame, he is deemed tame, whether in a private domain or a public. If a single witness says that he was rendered tame, another single witness says that he was not rendered tame, or if a woman says that he was rendered tame, and another woman says he was not rendered tame, in a private domain he is deemed tame, in a public domain and he is deemed tahor. Okay, we have one more to go. All right, I just have to pull this out. Pen. Pull it out.
Oh, you got two volumes of the Mishnah.
Regarding this is above Aleph. Regarding a place which was a private domain and a public domain, and became a public domain, and then became again a public domain. When it is a private domain, its two uncertainties are ruled tame. When it is in a public domain, its two uncertainties are ruled tahor. If a terminally ill person was in a private domain and they took him out to a public domain and then returned him to a private domain, while he is in the private domain, his two uncertainties are ruled tame. While he's in the public domain, his two uncertainties are ruled tahor. And Reb Shimon says the public domain interrupts. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Tamid. Gimel Ches. From Yeriko, they would hear the sound of the great gate being opened. From Yeriko, they would hear the sound of the shovel. From Yeriko, they would hear the sound of the wood that being cut and fashioned into a wheel for the labor. And from Yeriko, they would hear the sound of Gavini, the crier. From Yeriko, they would hear the sound of the flute. From Yeriko, they would hear the sound of the cymbals. From Yeriko, they would hear the sound of the Levium song. From Yeriko, they would hear the sound of the shofar, and some say also the sound of the Kohen Gadol when he mentions the name of God on Yom Kippur. From Yeriko, they would smell the fragrance of the compounded incense, and from Eliezer the Digla said, they would go to my father's house on the mountain of Mikvar, and they would sneeze because of the fragrance of the compounded incense. The Kohen who won the privilege of clearing the ashes of the inner altar entered and took the basket and placed it in front of himself, and he would scoop up the ashes and place them into the basket. And at the end, he swept the rest inside it, and he left the basket and went out. The Kohen who won the privilege of clearing the ashes from the menorah entered the Hakel, and if he found two eastern lamps burning, he would clear the ashes from the rest of the lamps and would leave those two burning in their place. If he found that the two eastern lamps were extinguished, he would clear the ashes, relight them, and from those who were still burning, and afterwards he would clear the ash from the rest. And there was a stone in front of the menorah in which there were three steps upon which the Kohen would stand to prepare the lamps, and he would place the jug on the second step and exit. They would not tie up the lamb, rather they would bind it, Akedah style. Whoever won the privilege of carrying the lamb, limbs would hold the lamb, and this is how the lamb was positioned in its binding. Its head pointed to the south, and its face was turned to the west. The slaughterer stands on the east side of the lamb, and its face was toward the west. The tumid of the morning was slaughtered by the northwest corner of the altar on the second ring. The tumid of the evening was slaughtered on the northeast corner on the second ring. The slaughterer slaughtered, and the receiver of the blood received it. He came to the northeast corner of the altar, would apply the blood to the east and to the north, and he came to the southwest corner and applied his blood to the west and to the south. The Kohen would pour remainder of the blood onto the southern base of the altar. Okay,
Okay.
that's it.
Then comes Bab Metzia.
Over here. Okay, Dalit. Both the buyer and the seller are governed by the law of fraud. Just as the law of fraud applies to the layman, so does the law of fraud apply to the merchant. When Judah says the law of fraud does not apply to a merchant, the one who was imposed has upon him, one has been imposed has upon him has the upper hand. If he wishes, he may say to him, "Give me my money, or give me what you defrauded me." How much may a seller be defective, and yet there should be still no infraction of the law of fraud? The mayor says 4 isserin and an isser to a dinner. Rabbi Yehuda says 4 pandios and a pandam to a dinner. Rabbi Shimon says 8 pandios and 2 pandios to a dinner. Until one may return in big cities, he can show it to a money changer in villages until the Eid of Shabbos. If he recognizes it, however, it should be accepted from him even after 12 months. But if he only has resentment against him, he may give it to the second tithe, and need not fear, for it is only out of evil disposition does one refuse the coin.
Okay.
And Pesachim.
Hmm.
Okay, Vav Aleph. These things pertaining to the Pesach offering override Shabbos. Its slaughter, throwing of the blood, removal of the offal from its entrails, and the burning of its fats. But the roasting and the rinsing of the entrails do not override Shabbos. Carrying it, bringing it from outside the Sabbath limit, and cutting off its wart do not override Sabbath. Reb Eliezer says they do override. Said Reb Eliezer, but this is not a logical argument. If slaughter of the Pesach, which is strictly prohibited as a labor, overrides Sabbath, then these which are forbidden merely because of rabbinic prohibitions should certainly override Sabbath. Rabbi Yehuda said to him, let the festival laws prove this, for on it they permitted labor, but forbid on what is prescribed because of rabbinical prohibitions. Rabbi Eliezer said to him, what is this, Yeshua? What proof can be adduced from a permissible act to a mitzvah? Rabbi Akiva responded and said, let sprinkling prove this, for it is a mitzvah, and is forbidden because of rabbinical prohibition, and does not override the Sabbath. So you should not wonder about these, even though they are a mitzvah, and are forbidden because of rabbinic prohibitions, they do not override Shabbos. Rebellion said, but what about this do I apply my logic? If slaughter was forbidden because it is characterized as a labor override Shabbos, then sprinkling, which is forbidden only by rabbinic prohibition, should surely override Shabbos. Rabbi Akiva said to him, perhaps the opposite is more correct. The sprinkling, which is forbidden by rabbinic prohibition, does not override Shabbos. Then slaughtering, which is forbidden because it is categorized as a labor, should surely override Shabbos. Rabbi Eliezer said to him, Akiva, you have uprooted what is written in the Torah. In the afternoon, in its appointed time, both on weekdays and Shabbos, said he, Rabbi Akiva, to him, my master, give me my appointed time for these, which is like the appointed time for slaughter. A general rule was stated by Rabbi Akiva, any labor that can be performed on the eve of Shabbos does not override Shabbos. Slaughtering, which cannot be performed on the eve of Shabbos, does override Shabbos.
Right, and we had the same argument in Maseches Shabbos about where Rabbi Eliezer again was saying that it was about bris milah. He said any
Uh,
malacha you need for the bris milah you can do on Shabbos, including like making a fire to sharpen the blade, etc. And they again right over there they shouted him down again and said no. Only those malachas that have to be done on Shabbos can be done on Shabbos. Everything else has to be done before Shabbos.
Gimel. When does one bring a chagiga with it? When it is offered on a weekday in purity and it is insufficient. But when is it offered on Sabbath, or is it abundant or in contamination? We do not bring a chagiga with it.
Okay.
Okay,
And
good,
there's it.
great. All right, Mitzvah Shem, I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.